is up, YouTube? Welcome or welcome back to my channel. Welcome if this is your first time. This is my channel, Pixie Dust and Spirit Alchemy, where we talk about all sorts of things taboo, strange, occult, magical, mystical, spiritual, stuff like that. Guys, today's video is a little bit of a personal story that I wanted to share, and I've been wanting to share it for quite some time, actually. But I've been hesitant about it just because it is taboo. It is weird. It is strange. It is, abnormal. But I figured since that's especially what my channel specializes in, and that's what I love to discuss on here, then it's the perfect place to share this information. And ultimately, it's really not that strange. It's not that special. It's not that specific. But it's something that I had to kind of come to terms with, like, do I want to share this part of my truth or not? And ultimately, the answer is yes. So, guys, today I'm going to be sharing my personal story, my personal experience with my out-of-body experience, and how that impacted me, what that was like, and how I also believe that it was essentially a psychologically induced near-death experience as well. So, let's get started. Alright, so if I was teaching a class right now, I would ask who here has had an out-of-body experience. So if you have, raise your hand. Or if you have, at least say in the comments below, so that you know what I'm talking about, or I know how many viewers know what I'm going to be referring to and have a similar experience that they can share, and we can match parallels and whatnot, because I love hearing other people's experiences about their out-of-body travels, whether it just has happened one time or whether it's happened multiple times, whether they practice it. So I'm always curious and excited to hear more of that, so that information is out there. Because honestly, I think that any out-of-body information that somebody has to share is important. Whether you experience it from a near-death experience, whether you astral projected during meditation, whether you had an out-of-body experience because of an overwhelming situation, whatever the case may be, how long or short it is, it's all important. Because all of it is connecting back to a singular truth, right? If so many people have experienced out-of-body sensations, out-of-body experiences, where do all these people go? I have another video which isn't really about astral travel or anything, but it's about Robert Monroe, a short video. I can post a link to it in here. And it's just about, well, anyways, that's about something that Robert Monroe said. But who Robert Monroe is he's an author, he's a scientist, he's a metaphysical scientist. He developed the Monroe Institute, which is in Virginia. And he's written these books. I don't have the first one here, but I have these two. His first one is Journeys Out of Body. The second one is Far Journeys, which, if you've seen the movie Soul, the Disney Pixar movie Soul, that movie is based on a few chapters in this book, right here. In addition, the CIA's notes on the Gateway Project, which is public information, I literally printed it out a couple years ago, just on the internet. And it's approved for release in 2003. And it is, I haven't actually read through the whole thing. I've kind of flipped through it. But the CIA's notes on the Gateway Project, which has to do with remote viewing and out-of-body travel and out-of-body experiences, documented proof, evidence, was also based on this book. Not the other way around. This was not written from this. If anyone is interested in out-of-body travel and has not read these books, is not familiar with what I'm talking about, I definitely recommend these. Starting with the first one, because they're not, well, I guess they are sort of ideally chronological, because he starts with his first experiences out-of-body. And then this is like once he's a little bit more experienced and he's kind of traveling in the astral realm and meeting entities and people and whatnot. And then this third one I read last year, I believe, and it's the ultimate journey. It's finally after he's sort of he's experienced in his out-of-body practices. So he's able to summarize and perform his objectives more and share in a more precise way with others what his experiences were and even how to get other people to experience the same thing. So, just a little background on astral travel, astral out-of-body travel, and I will say this is an old topic because I found this book in an antique shop in Austin, Texas, like last year. It's on psychic voyages. It's on out-of-body experiences. I believe it was published in the 70s or 80s, and so were Robert Monroe's books. It's not a recent phenomenon. I mean, it's probably been going on for much longer than it's been documented, especially in the cases of near-death experiences. And it's fascinating. It's fascinating because I believe it ties into life after death. You know, like what is after this? Because death isn't real. Death is essentially an illusion. All we're doing is leaving our physical bodies, our physical containers, and transitioning to the next realm, where we existed before we came into this body. And I know that that's not a majority, that's not a popular belief, but is what I believe. And based on my own experiences, they've only continued to confirm the evidence of that. And same with these books. So now, my out-of-body experience was induced by an overwhelming experience. And I did not start that day thinking that I was intending to have an out-of-body experience. I just did not. But scientifically, when the body or when the mind, when we experience something that is overwhelming and our body and mind can't process it, it can result in an out-of-body experience. And for me, mine was, I'll go ahead and say that it was psychedelically induced. I had taken LSD that day. This was back in, November of 2020. And I remember it was like November 22nd or 21st, because it was the next day was the very first day of Sagittarius season, I remember, because I'm a Sagittarius. And Sagittarius sun and rising, just saying. And so it was very significant to me, because what I experienced during that night changed me. It changed my perspective entirely. And I know that it could be debated that what I experienced was, not as real because I had taken LSD, but no, it completely was. It completely was. The LSD was irrelevant for the most part. And what I've read about other out-of-body experiences and other near-death experiences aligns completely with what I experienced. So I'll just get into what happened. I basically had a bad trip. I was in a very safe space. I was with a couple friends of mine, but at the time, my state of mind, I felt it was good enough for a psychedelic trip. I thought it was. But death was also a very prominent topic in my vortex, because I had a great uncle, who was on the verge of death if he hadn't died already. And it was just, so I was processing and already grieving that, and so it was in my energy. So what happened was, I was with my friend, and we were talking. We went inside, and I had just the singular thought of, am I okay? And what I believe happened is, I believe that I psychologically induced my own death. I believe that my mind thought that I died. And I'll get to this in a second, because I started panicking. I was telling my friend to take me to the hospital. Also, this is just a PSA to be careful with any drug. After this experience, I have not touched them since, because that was enough for me to stop right there. It was just as beautiful and just as enlightening as it was terrifying and traumatic. It felt like my soul was trying to leave my body. And I felt this intense pressure. Just this intense pressure of just some sort of energy trying to escape and not being able to. For some reason, when it felt like my soul was trying to escape my body, at the very final moment when my spirit and soul was catapulted from my physical body, I heard like this gunshot. And that was like, it was like a pop. And that was enough for me to start. From then, I heard a flat line. As if I had died in a hospital bed. And I started to go backwards. I started to go, like, it was very dark. And I just started to float backwards away from light, away from reality. But then as I got backwards and farther away, it became brighter. And then all of a sudden, I wasn't in my body anymore. There was just this intense feeling of release, of cathartic release. And I was looking down at my body on the couch, laying there. And my two friends on either side of me trying to figure out what to do with me. So when I first exited my body, it was like I was being pulled out of the back of my body. Like my soul was being sucked out of the back. And when I finally entered into the astral realm, what I saw was almost like my body was hanging on an assembly line or something, or hanging on like a wire. And it was just like a suit that I could put on. And I was standing in front of it, or behind it really, and there was this creature who appeared human, which might have just been my brain trying to, recognize this entity as being human. And he seemed friendly. It seemed like I'd known him before. And he was like looking at me from over my body, and he was like, "Ready to go again, or you want to hang out a little bit longer?" And that was the moment I knew I was out of body. Because I was like, oh my God, I have died. I have died. It felt essentially like I had been unzipped from the top of my head all the way down my spine in the back and all the way down my tailbone, and that I had just been pulled out of my bodysuit. I started to go through walls. I started to go through doors. I started to go in and out of solid objects. And I remember thinking I needed to go to the hospital. So from where we were, I zipped over to the hospital as fast as I could. And I remember going through the hospital doors, just the nearest hospital from where we were, and trying to get people's attention at the counter, at the check-in desk, and tell them, and no one could hear me, no one could see me. So I go back. And so if anyone is familiar with Robert Monroe's books a little bit, I entered what I believe is my belief life systems. Because as soon as I didn't really answer the person who asked me if I wanted to go back in or I wanted to hang out, because I was still kind of panicking. And I started to just move around, walk around, and I remember I saw Jesus, I saw Buddha, I saw Santa, I saw Ganesh, I saw the Easter Bunny. And I believe that I saw those things because in my beliefs so far on earth, those are all figures that I have come to believe in at one point in time. So they exist in my belief life system outside of here. In his books, he says that whether somebody has passed away or when you go out of body, people will essentially go to where they believe they're going to go. If you think you're going to go to heaven, you will be able to create that heaven, whatever it looks like to you. And people can get stuck in these belief life systems, but this is a whole other topic. There's a really great movie called What Dreams May Come by, I don't know who it's by, but Robin Williams is in it. And I love it. I feel like it is the most accurate portrayal of a movie of life after death. And they also talk about how you're able to create your own reality in that. So just another side note. And another thing that was interesting, though, aside from all these thoughts, was that looking down, I could almost see for myself and others where, the path of where every or any decision that one could possibly make at the time would lead, and what that would result in. And it was almost like the paths that were aligned with us, were aligned with me, the choices that were aligned with me, were illuminated. They were lighter. So from the spirit world, from the astral realm, it was almost easier to look down and see, oh, you need to make this choice because it'll lead you here. Because I can see that there's a light path right there. And if you go this way, it's dark. And it will result in X, Y, and Z. And it will, cause resistance. And you will take more time to get to where you need to be. I won't share too much about what I saw, like, with my family and everything. But I remember I was able to think about where I wanted to go, aside from flying down to the hospital. I don't know why I decided to take the long way there. Maybe I was just figuring out how to maneuver my astral body. But aside from that, I could think about where I wanted to be, and then I was there. And I didn't go too many places because I was still in the thought that I had to help my friends. And my physical body, meanwhile, was just on the couch, laying, passed out. And so I didn't have any actual physical problems wrong with me. I believe this was just, like I said, an entirely psychologically induced experience. But the mind is powerful, right? Especially when on psychedelics, So be careful with them. But it became obvious to me that everything around us, like when we're in our bodies, they're the physical container. But our inner being knows where to go naturally. But it's the physical third dimension, these frequencies, these tight frequencies that block us, that we get so stuck in, that we're unable to see everything else that's around us. And it was beautiful. It was beautiful. And scary at the time. But it was beautiful. There was one moment towards the end where I remember approaching this massive wall. And I don't quite remember. I think I knew that getting over or around this massive wall would take me back to my body. But I didn't really know that. I didn't know what was happening, because I didn't intentionally get there. After approaching this wall, and somehow after either getting around it or going through it or whatever, or maybe I told that being that I saw at the beginning, that friendly being, that I was ready to go back into my body, I went back into my body. It was strange because at the end of it, the next morning, I remember asking my friend. I asked my friend if I had died. I opened my eyes because I was in utter disbelief that I had opened my eyes to be in my friend's room alive. I had this strange physiological sensation that I carried around with me for a few days following this experience, and it was that zipper feeling that I felt where I had been unzipped from my body. It was like I could feel that on my back, and that like my flabs of skin, for lack of a better word, had been, sewn back together after I'd re-entered my body. And, obviously there was no scar or anything. That didn't actually happen. But I had the physiological sensation that is exactly what happened. And I could feel it. I could feel it down my spine. I had already believed in life after death. I've already believed in the spirit world. I've already believed in all that. But it was like I saw it myself. I remember feeling the next day so grateful to still be in my body, to have another go, that I could still come back, and that I wasn't grieving. And after I had this experience, I started reading more of Robert Monroe's books. I started learning about this stuff. I have not since astral projected or out-of-body traveled. I would like to in a more controlled fashion. So if anyone else has an experience similar that you would like to share, whether, had taken DMT, whether or not, whether you were sober, whether it was meditation, I'd love to hear it. I would love to hear about it. If you have any further questions about my own experience, I'm happy to answer them. I want this to be a safe space for people to be able to talk about what they want to talk about. All the taboo things. All the things that, I'm not going to say at the dinner table. Unless it's with the right company. I do believe that there is a whole world that exists beyond the physical, at the same time as the physical. I want to say I know for a fact. I've seen it. And it's beautiful. But so is this. And if we're in these bodies right now, it's for a reason. It's for a purpose. We chose to be here. We chose to be in our physical form. So that's all I'm going to share on it for today, you guys. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video if you've made it to the end. Thank you for listening. Thank you for just being the kind of audience that I would want to share this for. I hope this message, this story finds the right people. Because it was an unforgettable experience. It's still just as vivid in my mind as it was 3 years ago. Like, I'll never forget it. And I have the whole thing recorded, like the sound audio recorded. Of course, when I'm out of body, there's not really much sound going on. But just interesting that I happened to record that whole thing and then forget about my phone and then it was being recorded. So, as always, I hope everyone has been staying safe, stay kind, stay curious, and until next time, peace.